and welcome to episode 112 of the Alfa Romeo Driver podcast, brought to you by the Alfa Romeo Owners Club. With me this month, I have one of the club's newest section secretaries, Andrew Whitehead, known to his friends as Ted, and friend of the podcast, MiTo Registrar and AROC Racing Leagues commentator, Reeve Taylor, to talk about the eSports section's latest activities, including its new racing program, which started this week. Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So we'll talk about some of the changes that have happened in the world of AROC sim racing later on. But I just wanted to go back to the beginning for each of you and talk about how you got into sim racing in the first place and then how you got involved with our racing setup. So Ted, let's start with you.
Blimey, how did I get into sim racing? Okay, I was working away in Holland and we had a habit of going to the pub every single night after work. And it was getting really expensive. And I bought myself an Xbox and got into Forza Motorsport and liked it so much that I bought a wheel and some pedals. Then met a few friends who had a sort of similar interest. So we started a thing called World League Racing. Really decent bunch of lads. Beyond that, got into some sim racing with British sim racers on iRacing. And then through the Owners Club, stumbled across you guys, and that's where I've stayed.
Brilliant. And I think I'm right in saying this. If I'm not, I'll have to edit this bit out. But I think Colin Cunniff, who's been on a couple of podcasts, you knew before you met him again in the AROC sim racing. Is that right?
Yes, we used to compete against each other in the British Sim Racers Leagues and a few GT things as well. Fiercely competitive, I hasten to add.
It still is.
Yeah.
I was watching you on the leaderboard in tonight's race. Never saw you on the track, but I was watching you swap places at the front. Reeve, tell us a little bit about how you got into it.
So for me, I think I was quite lucky growing up. I was growing up around the time where racing simulators, racing games were really starting to get quite good. You look at Gran Turismo 4, the advent of the Forza Motorsport franchise were coming out as I was growing up. So that was kind of coincided with my kind of growing love for cars. So I've always had in the back of my mind a real love for sim racing. That grew a bit kind of heading into university through University Society Racing Leagues. Great way to get a taste of racing action, much cheaper because when you're a student, you can't afford it. And it was during lockdown that I stumbled across the AROC Racing Leagues because you guys were looking for a commentator, which is perfect because no one wants to see me actually drive the cars out.
Although when you have ventured out there, you're not too shabby.
I take an all or nothing approach. Either I'm all four wheels are on the tarmac or often than not.
So people who are involved or have been aware of our sim racing league will probably be familiar with Reeve's column in the magazine, which has been going, must be about a year now, isn't it? Ted, less so. Although you have made, I think, one appearance in the magazine so far, introducing the new structure of sim racing. So for those of you who aren't familiar, we started this early in lockdown, probably about April or May, I think, in 2020. Very informally, chucked up a couple of servers and just had a bit of fun for a few years. And then beginning of this year, we had a bit of a change and decided that we should probably be a bit more formally part of the AROC organisation. So we set up the AROC Racing Leagues as a section within the club. And Ted, I think everybody else took a step backwards and you were left to volunteer as the section secretary.
Well, the truth of it is you said the word secretary and I thought, oh, that'd be cool. I'll just go along to some meetings and take some notes and that'll be about it. Do a bit of admin. I didn't realise it would be quite so involved, if I'm honest.
So I think you've teed up the next question. Since you've taken over, what has been involved?
Well, as you know, you kind of did everything for so long. I mean, to the point where you'd learned how to set up the servers, to admin them, to liaise with some of the guys who were doing modding work on the circuits, worked out how to do some clever stuff with the cars in the background. And in all honesty, everybody else well, we had the luxury of just turning up and jumping in the cars and driving them. And I don't think, I know a few of the guys did some admin work on the servers, and we've done a little bit of media work in the background.
And you've painted an awful lot of cars.
And we've, collectively we've painted an awful lot of cars as well, because we like to use the partner sponsors from the Owners Club as our sponsors on the cars. So, getting the right logos and making sure that everything's tickety-boo, that takes some work. But I don't think any of us really appreciated just how much goes on in the background. So it's been a fairly steep learning curve for many of us, I think, and also a bit of a challenge dividing the roles up so that we don't end up in the same scenario where we've got one person doing everything. As much as we appreciated everything that you did and still do, we had to take more responsibility for it. We couldn't just keep relying on you all the time. So yeah, quite a big change for most of us, and maybe more so for you, just sitting back watching everything.
Yeah, it's been interesting, and it's been nice to still be called in occasionally, but to watch, I think probably the most satisfying bit has been to watch people say, I'm not sure how I do this, and be about to step in and have somebody else say, I'll have a go at that. I'll sort that out. And I think we had a bit of a slow start, and I think I was a little bit worried that there wouldn't be a second half of the championship in about, May, June time. And we were up and running this evening, or couple of days ago as the podcast goes out, but last Wednesday with the first round of the newly revamped championship, and decent turnout and some good racing.
I'll be honest, I shared those same concerns early on, and I think I seem to remember I kind of threw my toys out the pram a little bit and cheered everybody, and then all of a sudden everything started happening. So maybe I needed to be a little bit more bossy. I don't know, but yeah, it was a slow start. But yeah, the turnouts, the sign up has been great. We've had a lot of interest, and we've got some new people who've joined us. We've been running the practice servers for pretty much the whole of the summer break, and I'm amazed at how many laps people have driven in there. It's been fabulous to see.
Well, Matt Daly always races as though he's a full-time racing driver, but he seems to have been full-time on the practice service.
Oh, crikey, yeah. I mean, there's people have clocked up hundreds and hundreds of laps. It's quite good, really. So, yeah, seeing that level of interest, and, some the newer guys trying to get themselves up to speed with the cars, the circuits, our organisation. Yeah, it's been pleasant, but also a lot of hard work, and the relief of everything just working tonight, and the cars on the grid, and I got a fantastic start, so that was brilliant. I'm over the moon with that. But just knowing that everything was working, and that as a group we've actually achieved something, gives us confidence that we can continue.
I'm going to put Reeve on the spot now, because we've talked about the cars and the circuits. But for the last couple of years, we've run 2 championships, a touring car championship and a single-seater championship on alternate Wednesdays. But we're doing things a little bit differently, Reeve. Do you want to talk us through the 2 championships we're running for the rest of the year?
Absolutely, yes. So as you mentioned, we always have had a slight difference in the cars on offer. For this season, we've got our tried and tested Giulietta TCR, which is a great car to get into. It's pretty easy. Well, I'm not going to say easy to drive, but it's a comfortable car to drive out on track there. It's nice to get into, and it's nice for the modern Alfa, and I think to get a feel of what their road machinery might actually be like with some sticky tyres and a wing slapped on it. Our other championship, which we've just literally just stepped out of the comms box to come and record this, that was the GTA 1750. That's your classic Alfa with your 105 series, your twin cam engine, your live axle rear end, about 220 horsepower. Makes a great noise, and it looks fabulous on stream. Even if you're not taking part, it's a great sight to behold watching along.
It's the first time in a long time I've done a race and I've looked in the rearview mirror and thought, oh, that car looks really cool behind me.
It does. And I must say, Guy, I know you're sad to lose your carbon fibre effect because your weight advantage, but that lovely kind of pastel blue with the white stripes, it looks cracking, does your car? So you're going to get plenty of screen time. But
Good.
To go with those cars, we've also got some brilliant tracks as well. We're going back to our roots of some cracking British circuits, like Cadwell, Anglesey. We've just been to Silverstone National, so plenty of exciting stuff coming up.
That's quite a big change, because for the last couple of years, we've effectively followed the Formula One circuit. So regardless of whether we were doing touring cars or single seaters, we've tried to use the nearest Grand Prix circuit to to the weekend, or nearest Grand Prix weekend to the Wednesday that we're racing on for our races. But they're quite big, kind of sterile circuits. So I think it's quite nice to go back some familiar, tight, crowded grids on British tracks, Ted.
Yeah, I think, the Formula One circuits are absolutely fabulous. And I'll still jump into those every now and again just for a little play. But I think with this season, what we really wanted to try and do was capture a little bit more interest from people outside of our community of racers. And I just thought being in cars that are recognisable within the club, particularly with the 105, because it's, let's face it, everybody wants to drive one. If you haven't already, then it's a dream to get into one of those. But also, I thought it would be nice to propose the idea of doing this circuit of the UK. So we do a clockwise circuit, and then we end up racing at venues that are never really far away from anybody you might want to watch. I just live around the corner from Cadwell, so the opportunity to race around there is fabulous for me. I can actually call that my home circuit. So yeah,
we have had some interesting races at Cadwell in the past in the Sim series.
Yes, it's not for the faint-hearted.
It's a lovely motorbike track.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably two of the nicest things about this season setup. One is everybody can go to one of those circuits and watch some real racing. The other one is that the two cars we're racing, it's pretty easy for most members of the club to go to one of those circuits and see one or other of those cars racing this year. So Jamie Thwaites is racing a Giulietta TCR in the Alfa Romeo and Italian Intermarque Challenge Series. I think that's the championship series. AROC, anyway, what was the ARCA championship? And there's so many chances to go and see a 105 race in classic and historic racing around the country. So you can either go along and watch them race and then be inspired and come and race them in the sim, or having raced the sim version, you can go and see the real thing in action, not very far away from home. So we talked about wanting to bring people inside the community. So I think probably one of the things that listeners aren't necessarily aware of is we've had a group of I guess the total group's about 25 people who've raced on and off since we started in 2020, and a core of 10, 11, 12 who are there most weeks and indeed make up the core of the section organisation that's put all of this together. But what we really wanted to do was to get that out to a bigger audience. I think last year, or the first half of this year, we had 10 people registered for our single-seater series, and often 5 or 6 turn up. And the Giulietta series was probably 12 registered, and 10 was a really good night. And I think we're currently at 14 for the 105 and 18 for the Giulietta.
Yeah, that's going to make it quite. Maybe we should have gone with the Formula One circuits if we've got these bigger grids.
Or Le Mans or somewhere.
No, it's. I think the one thing that people probably wouldn't get until you've had a go on a reasonable sim is how realistic it is and how immersive the whole thing is. It can be as simple as you stick a couple of blocks under your office chair and bolt a steering wheel onto your desk, or as in my case and some of the other guys, we have a full dedicated PC with the virtual reality headset and a steering wheel that has got so many buttons and is so complicated. It is like a Formula One steering wheel. But just the whole feel of the car. The example I always give is there's a piece of repaired tarmac at turn 3 of Daytona, all the way up the banking. And when I hit that piece of repaired tarmac, I can feel it through my steering wheel. And, when you go over one of the curbs or a rumble strip or you get some kind of oversteer, understeer, the feedback through the wheel, the work that goes into the development of these applications and the equipment that we use has been phenomenal. And, working with the manufacturers of the vehicles to make sure that the tyre wear is representative and that changing the toe and the camber and caster has an impact on the car. It's just It feels incredibly real once you're in that.
I wish I understood the impact it had when I was playing with it, but setup is not my speciality.
No, me neither. I tend to find one that I like and then stick with it the whole season and hope for the best.
So in terms of, we said there's decent grids this year, but there is still room for more people. So if somebody's interested in taking part, what do they need to do?
Well, the way we've accepted people, the newer guys just at the minute, is they drop us an email. You're going to have to remind me the email address.
I'm going to have to look up the email address. I will edit this out later.
So the first port of call is the AROC UK website. And we've got our sim racing pages on there, which will give a good overview of what it's all about. There's some nice imagery in there and a couple of videos as well, and an explanation of what's what. But just drop us an email. A couple of the guys did quite recently, asked us just how do we go about it? What do we do? And there's either myself or one of the others will just guide you through everything you need to know. It's really quite simple. It looks complicated when you first start out, but as soon as you've got the hang of it and you've downloaded the right content, it actually is quite a breeze. Some of the guys were just commenting a couple of days ago, actually, a couple of the new guys were saying how easy it was to get set up. Although one of them did struggle with the car pack tonight, just downloaded the wrong version. But we talked him through it, and it's all tickety-boo.
And it is reasonably cheap. I mean, you need a fairly decent PC, but not outrageously so, because it's how old's the game now? 13 years old or something ridiculous, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it doesn't have huge demands, particularly if you're just racing with a single screen. And the game itself, you can pick up through Steam when they're having some of their deals. You can pick up the Ultimate Pack, which is the one that we use for 15, 20 quid sometimes. And I don't think it's ever very expensive, even when it's not on special offer. And then we provide all of the custom circuits and custom cars to members free of charge. So essentially the first time you go on to practice, it will tell you don't have the right bit of content and download it for you automatically. Well, that's the theory anyway.
I think it's all remarkably clever the way you set it up.
I wish I could take credit for the way it's set up. I think that's the guys who created Content Manager are the real geniuses behind all of this, and the server guys. So, Reeve, you've talked about you doing the commentary. If people aren't quite yet ready to race yet, tell us a little bit about what you do and where they can find your entertaining work.
Far too kind, and perhaps unrealistic there with entertaining, but yeah, absolutely. You can, if you don't want to take part in the racing action, but do want to get involved in one way or another, every round, at least we aim for every round, is streamed. The stream kicks off at around about 8 p.m. on the official AROC UK YouTube channel. You'll see it kind of usually wait around, so I have to get all my setup loaded and ready to go. And then we drop in. You'll see qualifying, race 1 and the race 2, where the racing is supplemented or rather impacted by my own words, because I think a few drivers tonight in particular, or a few days ago as it will go out, did find the commentator's curse was very much...
I was just going to say, Ted talked about how realistic the racing is, but that part of the commentary has always struck me as remarkable, is how the commentator's curse works just as well.
It got worse tonight. There was actually my abilities of extenders to just simply changing the camera over seems to ruin some people's races. But no, it's a really nice way to be involved. As I say, I'm not the best out on track, but I do enjoy being able to talk about the action as the when goes on. So if you are looking for something to watch over Wednesday evening, 8 p.m. on the YouTube channel, get the comments in as well. I'm always wondering then, so that is a great way to get involved.
And we'll stick a few links actually on the show notes for the podcast. But yeah, every Wednesday night we alternate between the 105s, the lead series, I guess, this half season. So the first race at a circuit will be on the 105, and then the following week it will be the TCR, and then cycle through that for the rest of the championship for the rest of the year. And I guess that's the other thing, is if you don't have to commit to both championships. So if you think you might have fun in the 105, but the Giulietta might be a bit serious, or you might not like the idea of 300 odd horsepower through the front wheels, then you can just sign up for the historic one. Or similarly, if you've never driven a tail happy rear wheel drive car, well, they're pretty good actually. They're pretty stable. The sim versions.
I mean, the good thing about the sim version, Guy, is that we've you've been able to help us a lot with this. Is that I know it seems a bit naughty, but we've added the ABS and traction control. So for those who are relatively new to the whole idea, it's made them a a heck of a lot more drivable. So that does help when you're first setting out on this sort of journey. I think, you know, some of the more experienced guys and girls don't use those assists anymore, but you know, it's always there as an option.
Yeah, and ultimately it's quicker without, but it helps some of us get around the circuit at all.
I think another important point is you mentioned Colin earlier and Matt, who are, you know, experienced racing drivers in real life. You know, I've spent, crikey, I don't know how many years messing around in simulators. So, you know, we've got a lot of experience between us, and there are a couple of others as well who really are.
Andy Brammer's done some real racing as well, hasn't he?
Yeah. So, you know, how do I put it nicely? At the pointy end of the grid, the times are really, really close, and the racing is very competitive. But there's also a group of people in the mid pack and a group of people maybe even towards the rear of the pack who are very, very closely matched. And it may end up that we're not all in the same race per se.
Yeah.
But there is a race for somebody with every ability. You know, when you look at the practice times on the servers, they're grouped into the, you know, the top of the tree and the middle, and they're all incredibly close. And it's remarkable how real it is. You know, when you think about Formula One and how pole position is less than a tenth of a second from second place now. In our qualifying tonight in the 105, we were less than a tenth of a second between pole and second place, and it's remarkably realistic.
What I do find quite nice about the AROC Racing Leagues is this was actually my first kind of commentary gig in effect. So I've had the privilege of starting off here, and now I've had the arguably greater privilege of other places now picking me up from it. So huge thanks goes to AROC for that. But that means I've been able to go into other sim racing leagues and kind of compare and contrast. What I like about the AROC Racing Leagues, what makes it different, goes back to what we were saying really early on, is that there's, especially these days, there's more of a community kind of sense and a feeling about it. You know, there's not one or two kind of championship organisers. Here's how it's going to run. Here's the car we're driving. Is that we're all working together on it. So it's everyone's kind of championship. You know, we don't run stewards. We don't have massive drivers meetings at the end to say, oh, you know, you've gone out of track limits here. You've been very naughty indeed. So what we do is we just drive fairly. We all want to make sure our championship works, and it means that there's a nice community around it.
Yeah, and I think there was an interesting evolution there because we did have stewards. I guess probably not the first couple of series we ran, but quite early on we introduced stewards, and I do think a lot of the fact that it's the same core of drivers and the fact that we are all so well behaved, I think is at least in part down to the fact that early on we were a bit stricter and would, you know, call people out for bad driving, and one of the reasons we stopped doing it was because we didn't feel we needed to anymore. But yeah, it is quite a relaxed setup.
Yeah, the earlier years with the stewarding, I think that was more of an educational thing than a punishment system.
Yeah,
and it has improved the way we all drive and respect each other. But you know, the mixed fortunes of racing. You know, I got a really good start in the first race tonight and found myself in the front and was fortunate enough to lead all of the way once I'd got into the front. In the second race, I was pretty much nowhere. I got turned around 3 times and said some naughty words. Yeah, the mixed fortunes, it's incredible. But what happens is at the end of the race, we all stay in our little chat room in Discord and we laugh and joke about it. You know, I was frustrated at the time, having been spun around, but it's all forgotten at the end of the race. Because there's no expensive bill to pay, bashing the rear wing back out or replacing it. And, you know, there is no trip to the stewards and, you know, a fine to pay. We're just a nice community who get on and race really hard and competitively, but it's all friends at the end of it. So
and I think that's an aspect that, you know, it isn't as realistic as some of the other stuff, but I think adds a lot to it and probably people who haven't raced aren't aware of. So we do have a Discord channel connected to the series, which isn't just a text chat forum between races. It's a live audio chat during the races. And there's some quite good banter on it. I would say probably 90% of the race, it's silent because everybody's concentrating on what they're doing. It's probably a bit noisier in qualifying, actually. But there's still some quite good interactions between the drivers during the races sometimes.
I could certainly hear your spotter telling you that it was spinning up the inside rear of the field.
It's the advantage of a VR headset with exposed headphones and a good mic. But it's all good fun. We've talked a fair amount about tonight's race, which was good fun in the 105s and the 1750 GTAs. This podcast goes out in between two rounds, or in between the first round of the historic series and the first round of the touring car series. So if you do want to catch some racing, next Wednesday from about 7:30, probably near 8 by the time qualifying comes on our YouTube channel, it's round 1 of the touring car series, which is the Giulietta TCR, and that's again on the Silverstone National Circuit. So come along, have a look, maybe leave some comments, and we'll maybe get you signed up for some races later in the year. It's been really great having you on, gentlemen. I'm still exhausted after my first race of the season. My arms are killing me, but it's been a pleasure talking to you, and see you on the grid next week.
Take care.
Yep, see you next week. Thank you very much.
That's it for this episode. We'll be back in 4 weeks' time on Sunday, October the 5th. Episode 113 will be available to download from 1:30 p.m. from the club's website, YouTube, Spotify, Podbean, Podcast Addict, Apple Podcasts, and everywhere else good podcasts are found. Until then, stay safe.